Have you ever wondered how to pick the perfect monitor for your PC build? If so, you're in the right place. I'm James, you're watching Ebuyer, and this is our ultimate 2022 Monitors Buyer's Guide. Let's do this. Now it goes without saying, over at ebuyer.com we've got a massive range of monitors available, and the handy people in Ebuyer's stock department have picked out a couple of our favourites. For a slightly larger panel, we've got the MSI Optix G32 series. This is of course a 32-inch monitor with a super fast 1 millisecond response time, a 165Hz refresh rate, and support for AMD FreeSync. What's more, it also has a curved design, allowing us to really explore whether you need a curved monitor. Do you need one? I guess we're going to find out. For comparison's sake, we've also then got this Asus monitor with a similarly fast response time and refresh rate in a 27-inch form factor, and with a different panel type. Now I'm going to go ahead and unbox these in just a moment, but first, what are the key specifications you should look out for when buying a gaming monitor? The first is of course refresh rate. Now refresh rate determines the number of times that your screen can refresh in a given second. A 165Hz refresh rate, as is commonplace on both of these monitors, means your display can show up to 165 consecutive frames per second. There's 165 refreshes per cycle. The higher the refresh rate, the higher the frame rate your monitor can actually show. Now it isn't always that simple, as often the frame rate on your game won't line up exactly with the refresh rate of your monitor, which is why having an FPS higher than your refresh rate is still useful. But it goes without saying that a 165Hz refresh rate can show nearly 3 times the number of frames as at 60Hz. Of course, the higher the refresh rate, the smoother the panel, the earlier you're going to see people peeking corners in the latest titles, and all in all, you're going to get a more reactive gaming experience. But refresh rate is often where people stop. They go, oh, 300Hz refresh rate, perfect for me. But actually, you also want to look at the response time. Now this is likely to be anywhere between 0.1 milliseconds through to 1, 5 or 10 milliseconds depending on the panel. What that means is the delay that's actually put into place by the processing of the monitor. If you plug in a cable to a display like this with a 1 millisecond response time, you're going to see a 1 millisecond delay between your computer actually rendering the image and it showing on your panel. The higher the delay, the less competitive a monitor is likely to be. That makes arguably response time just as, if not more important than refresh rate. Most gaming monitors will come with a 1 or 2 millisecond response time, but 1 is more common, while some of the latest panels actually go down to the decimal points. 0.1, 0.5, 0.8 millisecond response times. And it goes without saying, over on eBuyer, we've got a wide range of options with different refresh rates and of course different response times. A little bit of a top tip for anyone buying a gaming monitor: make sure you build it with the monitor still on the polystyrene. Don't pop the screen on your desk, especially if it's curved. There's a lot of pressure you're then going to put on either lateral edge. So leave it down here for now, take your stand out separately and do the whole assembly process here. And if you absolutely have to, make sure you pop the monitor on a blanket or a towel or something soft, so not only you don't scratch the screen, but so that also you support the weight of the panel. And definitely don't do it half hanging off a table. Trust me, from experience, that doesn't end well. Now this Asus monitor is really unique because it also allows us to talk about what are the next things to look out for in a monitor: pixel density. Now resolution is often the place people get the most hung up. Is it 1080p? Is it 1440p? Is it 4K? And of course, the higher the resolution, the more pixels the monitor can display. And this rises pretty exponentially. 4K, for example, has got nearly 4 times the number of pixels as 1080p, making it 4 times more difficult to drive by your graphics card than the low resolution. But pixel density is a really great way of getting a higher perceived image quality without working your graphics card any harder. What I mean by that is that a 27-inch monitor like this with a 1440p resolution is going to look more sharp than a 32 or a 40-inch monitor with a 1440p resolution. And that's obviously because on this monitor the pixels are more densely packed together to allow, of course, to fit into the smaller form factor. Resolutions always have their pros and cons, and 1440p, which is the refresh rate of this monitor, is a perfect middle ground in my opinion. It's a bit more tricky for your GPU to drive, but not nearly as hard as 4K, while also giving you a noticeable image quality improvement. And when I say noticeable, I mean really noticeable. But lower resolution doesn't necessarily mean bad, as we'll explore with this MSI 32-inch 1080p panel. This monitor actually feels noticeably bigger already.
I bet it does.
Oh no. On a serious level though, this feels huge already. 32 inches, of course, is the size of like a TV that you would have in your house a few years ago. So to put it on top of a desk just feels a bit mad, really. And monitors go bigger. I mean, Ebuyer have even got a 49-inch panel. 49 inches for those looking for the biggest possible gaming experience. Gaming experience only. I don't know what else you thought I was referring to there. One downside of this panel, it's not toolless. You've actually got to put 4 screws in, which arguably is a bit more secure, but it's also a little bit more finicky, fiddly, whatever you want to go for, than of course our Asus panel, which is toolless. But this is a slightly more affordable panel than the Asus one, so it's swings and roundabouts as far as I'm concerned, and not a huge headache, because you do of course get all the screws you need included in the box. In all seriousness, the larger form factor of this display is going to make it better for non-gaming applications as well. Productivity, for example, is going to be better on this monitor, where splitting things into halves or quadrants on your screen just is going to be that bit more readable. Plus, the low resolution makes this a better option for those rocking slightly less powerful graphics cards. RTX 3050s, 3060s are going to be at home on this large monitor, while still giving you that big format gaming experience. So we've looked at pixel density, refresh rate, resolution, and input lag. But what other things should you consider on a monitor? There's one big one that we've missed out, and it's not size, although that is something we're going to talk about in a future eBuyer video, but it's actually the type of panel. Now, you may notice when you shop for a TV on ebuyer.com that some displays are OLED, some are quantum dot, some are like Infinity Edge. There's lots of different branding, but fundamentally, there's a few types of panels that are used on gaming monitors. These panels will have a direct impact on refresh rate, input lag, and image quality, primarily the richness and colour accuracy of the colours on screen. The first is TN. TN is the cheapest type of monitor panel out there and is the worst when it comes to colour reproduction and colour accuracy. It is a very quick panel though, making high refresh rates and low input lag measurements very feasible. Above that, you've also got a VA panel. VA is sort of an in-between between TN and IPS, which we'll come to. VA panels use some really clever next-gen tech to give you better image quality than a TN panel, while still retaining many of the positive characteristics in terms of refresh rate and input lag. Work further up the spectrum and you've got IPS. IPS is the most vivid and rich colour panel available, but IPS monitors are often a bit slower in terms of refresh rate and input lag, and if they're not, then they've had to be made in a very expensive fashion to facilitate that. An IPS panel is harder to drive, and while that means the colours will be better, especially for those looking to edit videos or play their latest titles with deep, rich HDR tones, there are some sacrifices to be made. The best panel type really that we've recently seen is quantum dot or OLED. OLED allows you to get really deep blacks, allows better colour accuracy and better saturation levels than IPS, but once again is a slightly slower panel. I think really it's going to depend on the budget you're at. Personally, I would try and avoid a TN panel due to some of the downfalls with colour accuracy, but if you're dead set on a 360Hz monitor, then you are going to have to be more flexible on the type of panel that is available to you. In some of our image tests of these two displays, I've been very impressed. I think the Asus one has better image quality without a shadow of a doubt, but I prefer the size and the form factor of our MSI 32-inch. 27 inches is great as well for those fast first-person shooters, because none of the monitor really is in your peripheral vision. It's all in your primary line of sight and allows you to get a really good observation of what's going on in your favourite game. For those looking to play more casual titles, strategy games, RPGs, or those just looking to multitask to quite a high degree, a larger panel like this makes a lot more sense. The only final thing really we haven't covered is whether a panel is curved or not. This has become a recent addition to the monitor space in the last couple of years, and something we never really saw before. You can see the curve on these two panels are varying. This one seems a bit more gentle, but it's also a smaller design, making the curve less accentuated. But what a curve helps to do is create an immersive gaming experience. And if you've got multiple monitors in a surround sound setup, the curve actually helps to bring the monitors in a bit. It reduces the width of the panel, and when you've got multiple panels in use, that makes a massive difference. It all is down to personal preference, but look out for the refresh rate, input lag, panel type, and of course whether it's curved. Decide upon a monitor size that's best for you, as we'll discuss in an upcoming eBuyer video, and then you're pretty much set. Check out the full range of monitors available over at ebuyer.com in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we'll see you soon.